from our First Testament, or Hebrew Scriptures, commonly referred to as the Old Testament, have a similar contextual milieu, or cultural setting. Foreign occupation or captivity as a result of invasion or war. There are psalms and poems that grow out of this setting, as well as formative cultural myths and stories and prophetic utterances. Now, you've heard all of this before from this pulpit, but in order for us to have a clear understanding of the third reading this morning, and one could even argue our first reading from the Gospel of Matthew, as well as the text from our psalm, it is important to repeat some of it. So let's take a moment to name and think about just some of the stories and events from Israel's past and how they would have shaped a people and their understanding of God, themselves, their place in the world, and the stories that they tell one another. Enslaved at the hands of the Egyptians. Nearly everyone knows that story. Conquered by the Assyrians and taken into captivity by their king in the 8th and 7th centuries BCE. History then repeating itself at the hands of the Babylonian Empire just 100 years later in the 6th century BCE, where the temple in Jerusalem was decimated, the capital city sacked, the nation dispersed and taken into captivity yet again, this time for nearly 2 full generations, some 70 years. All of this and all of the constant threats from both without and from within dominated their narrative. Consider the questions the people must have had. Can you fathom the anxiety that they would have carried with them on a daily basis? The generational trauma that likely existed. Can you imagine how the people would have been, just as a people, as a result of all of that? This morning, our reading from Isaiah, penned by an unknown prophet, often referred to as Second Isaiah, was written as the Babylonian Empire fell at the hands of the Persian king Cyrus the Great. And even though they were still captive in a foreign land, or maybe even prisoners within their own, there was now hope where there had once been only despair. Promise where there had only been disillusionment. Of this text, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote, "It is prophecy tempered with human tears, mixed with joy that heals all scars, clearing a way of understanding the future in spite of the present. No words have ever gone further in offering comfort when the sick world cries." So let's hear these words from 2nd Isaiah, birthed in this difficult and uncertain context. Now, I'm going to read a little bit more than the text that's listed in your bulletin. And most of it will sound vaguely familiar to you or very familiar to you. You have heard it before, but I think it's important for us to begin at Isaiah chapter 40, verse 1. There we read this: "Comfort, oh comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and cry to her that she has served her term, that her penalty is paid, that she has received from the Lord's hand double for all of her sins." A voice cries out, "In the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be lifted up, every hill and mountain be made low. The uneven ground shall become level, and the rough places a plain. Then the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all people shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. A voice says, "Cry out." And I said, "What shall I cry?" All people are grass. Their constancy is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades when the breath of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers, and the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is God who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. God who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to live in, who brings princes to naught and makes the rulers of the earth as nothing. Scarcely are they planted, scarcely sown, scarcely has their stem taken root in the earth. When God blows upon them, and they wither, and the tempest carries them off like stubble. To whom, then, will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the Holy One? Lift up your eyes on high. Lift them up and see. Who created these? It is the Lord who brings out their host and numbers them, calling them all by name, because God is great in strength, mighty in power, not one is missing. What do you say, O Jacob? And speak, O Israel. My way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of heaven and earth. God does not faint or grow weary. The Lord's understanding is unsearchable. God gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths faint and grow weary, and young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Friends, this indeed is holy wisdom, a holy word. Thanks be to God. It is so easy to be weary, to find ourselves overwhelmed. Reading texts like this and hearing their background can serve to remind us that history inevitably repeats itself. As we look around our world, we hear news of wars and rumors of wars, violence and destruction, death and disease. It's so easy to be weary. We look around, we're reminded that the worst of our isms still exist and seem to even be getting worse in certain circumstances. What we once thought or hoped was impossible seems to be coming to fruition. Racism has once again reared its ugly head. Its sounds are loud and out in the open for everyone to hear. Women aren't trusted to make their own decisions. And they still earn less than their male colleagues for doing the same exact job. Our Jewish, Muslims, Sikh friends and neighbors have adjusted their faith practices so as to not be targeted by others. A friend of mine recently told me that they remove their kippah, their Jewish head covering, before they go into the grocery store, something they've never done before. He said, I just don't want to deal with all the things. It's so easy to be weary. We look around, there are distractions and diversions, divisions and disconnections. Walls are erected between us, and animosities deepen within our own families, across the street, down the road, all around us. It feels like everyone is looking for a fight or picking one, and everything is in an existential crisis. At least that's what the doomsayers would like for us to think. It's so easy to be weary. People live every day without their basic needs being met. Many have their personhood questioned, their identity doubted, their humanity denied on a daily basis. It's so easy to be weary. New diagnoses, loss, grief, worry, anxiety. It's so easy to be weary. There are not enough hours in the day, or at least that's how it feels. Not enough hours to do all the things that need to be done. Not enough time, not enough space to simply be. It is so easy to be weary. Friends, into this chaos, all of this uncertainty, the reality of our everyday, the message of the prophet remains steady and true. Lift up your eyes and see. Look about you yet again. God calls all things by name. Not one is missing from God's presence. Not one. The prophet writes, God does not faint or grow weary. The Lord's understanding is unsearchable. God gives power to the faint, strengthens the powerless. Even youths will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. God, the creator of all things, present for our rest and for our work, in our rest and in our work. Harriet Tubman, who escaped a life of enslavement and went on to lead dozens upon dozens of enslaved people to freedom through the Underground Railroad, using songs like The Drinking Gourd to guide their steps. She once said, "'Twasn't me, 'twas the Lord. I always told God I trust you. I don't know where to go or what to do, but I expect you to lead me." And God always did. I always told God, I'm going to hold steady on you. And you've got to see me through. God strengthens us when we are uneasy. God accompanies us along our treacherous path. God holds us when we are weary. We may not know how, but we know that the truth that God will never abandon us, no matter where we may find ourselves, will always remain. We have seen it. We've seen it in our own past, And we have heard it in the stories of those who have gone before us. As Jesus himself is recorded as having once said, "Come unto me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Come, follow. There is rest for the weary. There is hope for our journey. God has made this promise, and God is faithful. God is present here and now, and in every here and now that is yet to come. Come, all you who are weary, find your rest. To God be the glory. Amen.